welcome to the Movies Past and Present podcast. It's November 21st, 2019, and this is episode 36. I'm your host, Stanford Clark, and I'm podcasting from the crossroads of the West in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. Just like my blog, moviespastandpresent.com, I'll be providing recommendations, commentary, and reviews about current and classic cinema. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started. All right, new in theaters this weekend, we've got some interesting choices. First up is an animated family film from Walt Disney Animation Studios. It's the sequel to Frozen, which is called Frozen 2. And I've actually seen Frozen 2 already, and I will be reviewing it later on the podcast. So Frozen 2 is rated PG by the Motion Picture Association for action, peril, and some thematic elements. Next up is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is a comedy drama from Sony Pictures Entertainment. This is a film where Tom Hanks portrays Fred Rogers, or Mr. Rogers, from the beloved public television program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But actually, from what I understand, I haven't seen this film yet, but it's really more about a jaded writer who's named Tom Junod, Junod, and he actually did a profile for Esquire magazine about Mr. Rogers, and it really changed his life. So this movie covers more about this writer's journey than it does about Mr. Rogers per se, so I understand. But so this writer learns to overcome his skepticism and becomes more empathetic, kind, and decent after spending time with America's most beloved neighbor. So, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is rated PG by the Motion Picture Association for some strong thematic material, a brief fight, and some mild language. As a side note, if you didn't get a chance to see the great documentary which was released last year called Won't You Be My Neighbor, which was a documentary about Mr. Rogers, I just thought absolutely a terrific film. So hopefully this new drama is good too, and you know, it's nice for paying tribute to Mr. Rogers, and heaven knows we could use some decency and civility in the world. So next up is 21 Bridges, which is an action drama from STX Entertainment. 21 Bridges follows an embattled NYPD detective who's played by Chadwick Boseman, who is thrust into a citywide manhunt for a pair of cop killers after uncovering a massive and unexpected conspiracy. As the night unfolds, line becomes blurred on who he is pursuing and who is in pursuit of him. When the search intensifies, extreme measures are taken to prevent the killers from escaping the island of Manhattan, as the authorities close all 21 bridges on and off the island to prevent any entry or exit from Manhattan. So, anyway, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this movie got delayed a little bit, which I always wonder about when that happens. But anyway, it's opening up this weekend. It's rated R by the Motion Picture Association for violence and language throughout. And then finally, for new films this weekend, actually this film, I think depending on where you live, it might have been playing for a week or two, but this is The Irishman. This is the latest film directed by Martin Scorsese, and it's actually going to be playing on Netflix starting November 27th. But in order for it to qualify to be nominated for an Academy Award, it's got to play in first-run theater. So I was able to see it on the big screen. I'm planning to do a full review of it in the next podcast. But as you might be familiar with, it's based on a novel, but it's kind of an impossible interpretation of what happened when union leader and convicted criminal Jimmy Hoffa disappeared in 1975. This film stars Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro is the Irishman, who is basically he's a mobster. It talks about his evolution, and it covers like a 60-year period or so. Could be a little off on that, but decades. And they do a really fantastic job in this film of aging and de-aging these actors. So Robert De Niro plays the lead character. Al Pacino plays Jimmy Hoffa. Joe Pesci's in it, and Ray Romano. I mean, it's a really interesting cast, and the acting and the filmmaking are really superb. And I'll be doing a full discussion about it in probably my next podcast. So again, it's now in select theaters. Hopefully it's in your market if it's something that you want to see, but also if you're a Netflix subscriber, you'll be able to watch it on November 27th. The Irishman is rated R. Hello, it's Martin Scorsese, right? By the Motion Picture Association for pervasive language and strong violence. So there you have it. The 4 major studio films opening up this weekend. Frozen 2, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, 21 Bridges, and The Irishman. For reviews this week, there are 2 films I want to talk about. One film opened up last week, and since I didn't do a podcast last week, I'm reviewing it right now. This is Ford v Ferrari, or Ford versus Ferrari, and this is a terrific action film from 20th Century Fox. It stars Matt Damon and Christian Bale. So if you're not familiar with this history, this is actually based on a true story. The Ford Motor Company from the United States, they in the 1960s wanted to buy Ferrari, as in the Italian race car manufacturer. Ferrari was having some financial troubles in the mid 60s, and Ford wanted to come in and be able to take advantage of that very much beloved and respected brand. And who knows what necessarily Ford would have done with it, but still they wanted to buy it, and they had a verbal agreement with the firm's owner, Enzo Ferrari. Well, it turns out that Enzo Ferrari was really just using Ford to jack up the price, and he ended up selling to the Italian automobile manufacturer Fiat behind Ford's back. So the Ford Motor Company was embarrassed. The Ford management team was insulted, and they decided they were going to go to war, quote unquote war against Ferrari, and build a race car to race in the prestigious 24-hour of Le Mans race, which happens annually in Le Mans, France. This is a race that truly it's done over a 24-hour period. Each team, if I'm not mistaken, has 3 drivers, and they rotate, as the car comes in for a pit stop. But anyway, Ford in 1966 actually beat Ferrari at Le Mans, and it was a really big deal. In fact, Ford dominated Le Mans for 4 years after that, so 1966 through 69. And it's a really fascinating story. This film, of course, is highly dramatized, but still, it's just supreme Hollywood entertainment, and such an interesting film. So Matt Damon plays Carroll Shelby. Now, you might recognize the name Carroll Shelby, or just at least the name Shelby. There's a Shelby Mustang and the Shelby Cobra, but Carroll Shelby was a former race car driver who turned into a sports car designer, and he partnered with multiple manufacturers, but he really had a close relationship with the Ford Motor Company. Carroll Shelby actually won. He used to drive for Aston Martin, the British car manufacturer, and he won at Le Mans in 1959. So, again, kind of a distinct honor that he had, and an experience and knowledge that he actually knew what it takes to win at Le Mans. And so Ford hired him to be the team manager. And then Carroll Shelby really was a strong advocate for a British car engineer and driver named Ken Miles. And in the film, Ken Miles is played by Christian Bale. And so really the film explores the relationship that Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles had and how they worked together to take on Ferrari at Le Mans. Also, though, an interesting thing, and it's almost, clearly about this whole dynamic between the Americans and the Italians with the Ford Motor Company and Ferrari battling it out. But really, there's also this very interesting component of the film, which I think is also true to the story, where Carroll Shelby really had a battle with the Ford Motor Company leadership team on using Ken Miles as a racer. Ken Miles was known as a very difficult man, and you can see how he's portrayed in the film. I mean, I think he's portrayed rather sympathetically in the film, but still, you can see how this guy's there's some challenges working with him, but he's just this amazing racer and driver. So anyway, that is an interesting dynamic, and really the dynamic between Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles is really cool. The final third of this film is that 1960 is a recreation of that 1966 race at the 24-hour Le Mans, and it's so cool. This film was directed by James Mangold, and he and his team just did the really most amazing job of recreating this race, but just did a really expert job of telling this story and really taking us through this race. And I mean, it's this race is 24 hours, so of course they have to cut it down, but it's just technically so excellent. And I think there was a lot of practical filming that they did with actual cars, and then I think a lot of it was done, of course, with computers. But just the cinematography is absolutely stunning. The sound design is remarkable. I saw it in an IMAX theater, and typically IMAX theaters are known for not only for their wonderful big picture, but also for their sound. And literally the sound design just was rolling around the theater in just the most exciting and interesting way. But those the race scenes are all winners, and particularly that one at the end. So I really can't recommend enough seeing Ford versus Ferrari. It is such an entertaining and terrific film. So definitely put that one on your list. And if you can, go see it in the theater and on the biggest screen possible. Next up in reviews is the Walt Disney Animation Studios film Frozen 2. So, Frozen 2 is a sequel to the 2013 mega hit, if you can even call it a mega hit. I mean, it was just a phenomenon, that original Frozen film. So all the same cooks were brought back into the kitchen. So same directors, which were teams Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck. I think most of the same producer, Peter Del Vecchio at Disney Animation. I don't know about the artists per se, but I bet you a lot of the same artists worked on this film that worked on the first one. The same songwriters, Bobby Lopez and his wife Kristen Anderson Lopez. anyway, I heard an interview with Kristen Bell. Kristen Bell is the the voice actress of the character Anna in the film, and what she was saying is, when you are baking a cake and you're using the exact same chef and the exact same ingredients, you're gonna get the same kind of cake. And I think she brings up a good point, because this is a really fun film. This is a really good film, just like the first one was. Now, I really thought the first Frozen film was terrific. I got a little puzzled with the whole Frozen phenomenon. The film became so popular, it really took a life of its own. I also think that the Walt Disney Company kind of didn't help it. I mean, who can blame them? Because here they had this monster hit and they wanted to take advantage of it. But I believe they had something, and it seems to me that it was called like the Frozen phenomenon, something to that effect. And anyway, it was frozen everywhere. Like, I remember going to Disneyland, and you just frozen merchandise was everywhere, no matter where you were in the park. I mean, it was almost a little too much. It's just like, okay, we get it. This was your movie and it was successful, but we don't necessarily need to, buy Frozen merchandise, in Adventureland or Tomorrowland or whatever. I remember, and I've told the story before, but I remember this is like an all-time low. I walked into my local Walgreens, and literally on an end cap, and right near the front of the store, there was a Frozen Snuggie, which is one of those blankets, that has the sleeves, and a Frozen humidifier. So, you could get this humidifier with Anna and Elsa and Olaf on it or whatever, and I just thought, wow, what's up with this? So, anyway, the Frozen phenomenon was not necessarily my favorite thing. However, it really didn't diminish my love and appreciation for the original film. And here now we've got this sequel. I'm going to keep this spoiler free, but Frozen 2 is really a wonderful complement to the first film. I think that the creative team did an expert job of creating a new and interesting story for these sisters, for Anna and Elsa. But so that wasn't necessarily a repeat, although there's, clearly some things that they do again, like, oh, here's one of Olaf's funny songs, or, or whatever. Or here's, a chance for Elsa to have, this is kind of her let it go moment, in this film or whatnot. But it's still different enough and original enough that again, I found it surprising and really, really enjoyable. So in this film, it really picks up where the other film ended. There's also been, a couple of Frozen shorts that were made, and this kind of takes place right after them too. But Anna and Elsa are, Queen Elsa and Princess Anna. They're ruling their kingdom of Arendelle, and life's pretty good, and kind of unchanged or unchanging. Anna's still hanging out with Kristoff and Sven the reindeer, of course, and then Olaf is there too. He doesn't have a little flurry over him. He talks about something. I think he's got some kind of new snow composition that doesn't melt. So anyway, but Elsa's hearing voices, and she's not quite sure what they're telling her, and she's wondering if she should just block them out or what she should do. But anyway, Elsa heeds the call to these voices, and it really propels then this film into a fun adventure. They leave Arendelle and they go into this enchanted forest, and I'm not going to give really anything away other than I thought that one of the strengths of the original film, and it's the same with this one too, is that there's just a lot of good action. There's some interesting action, your set pieces, that makes it entertaining. Of course, really at its core, it's a movie about two sisters, and that's the way with the original Frozen, and it's the same with this one. Both of them have some big challenges that they have to overcome, and I think that's really satisfying. At the film's core are the big questions that I think a lot of us had after the first film. Was like, well, where does Elsa get her powers? And also, like, what in the world happened to their parents? Like, why did their ship go down? What were they doing? Why did they leave? So these questions get answered, and but really, you get to go on a fun ride. I think that the new songs that the Lopez's created are really great. I'm gonna have to listen to the soundtrack probably a little bit more. I hate to necessarily just compare it to the first film. I think those songs in the first film were all just so terrific. Because they'd be hard to beat. But I found that at least with the first listen, that the songs I thought were really good. They were catchy, they were fun, and they propelled the story forward in good ways, which is their job to do, right? We'll see what kind of a hit Frozen 2 is. I think it would be hard to surpass the first one, but maybe Frozen fever will strike again. Let's hope it's not to the extent of the Frozen phenomenon that was that first one, because I'm still not buying a Frozen 2 Snuggie. So anyway, for sure go see Ford versus Ferrari and Frozen 2. Well, that does it for this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Links and more information about all of the movies discussed in today's podcast can be found in the podcast notes on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com. As always, I hope you'll enjoy some good movies this week, whether they be from the past or the present. Until next time, thanks for listening, and see you at the movies.